created incentives for their students to go and submit typos that they found on the books that were the required reading material, elementary school, for the students. And one of the examples that we had was one of the students, and also the correction of what he thought the typo was by one of our A readers, our type A readers. And so it's really interesting to see that social learning aspect of it, where it's almost creating incentive for students, very young students even, to read more, and read more analytically, and pay attention to what they're reading more. And I just put a bullet there, ACES 2010, John and Brandon, one of the other founders, were there as attendees, and we were lucky enough to be asked to present for this conference. And we'll definitely be in New Orleans next year. Mm-hmm. So as we go forward, we've been focusing on, well, how do we increase that crowd, the cloud of population that contributes to this, and how do we generate more interest? And so it's really, I put a little disclaimer there. This is our engineers' view of the publishing industry from the outside. We don't really have inside contacts there. But generally from what we've seen, there's a lot of cost reduction efforts and initiatives across the board, not just for this industry. And we feel that this also applies to the publishing industry. And we found that there's less money and less resources applied to proper editing and proofreading of material. And I think in some of the other discussions and presentations, there's that concern that the quality of writing is decreasing because the right resources aren't being applied to correcting the information before it gets published. And of course, this results in more errors, more mistakes in published material. Now, specifically with textbooks, John already mentioned a little bit about this. This really could be a problem. If you're presenting factual information incorrectly, it could present a problem in the future. And also, coming from the engineering world, if that one formula has a plus sign instead of a multiplication sign, it makes a huge difference, and it could affect the grade at the end of the class. Right? That's how you remember the formula. And we talked a little bit about the number of revisions of a book and how many more changes are printed. And I think this is just my assumption right now from the money I spent going to college, but every year there's a new edition of the textbook. And I think part of that is because the professors who are writing the books want students to buy new books, and so they'll move the chapters around, add some new chapters, and say, this is a new edition. You need to buy this one because if you don't, you're going to miss out, or you'll be confused on what the chapters are. So I know this was kind of a pet peeve of mine when I was in college, but you really need to buy the new one. And you couldn't go to the store or ask your friend for last year's copy, right? So it's a way that they generate more revenue for themselves and for the industry, but also typos.com presents an opportunity where they can say, well, you have to buy the new one, not only because it's new content, but because it's better. Fix the mistakes, exactly, yeah. So moving forward, I mentioned a little bit about the students and increasing that. We saw in the chart that getting students involved really sends our numbers up. And it seems like a really good way, not only for typos.com and the industry, but also for the students and the education. And so we tried to set the right incentives, and we tried to look at what works. And one of the things that we've seen is that the contest, right? Make it a competition. Who is the student who finds the most typos, or finds them first? And that student could be rewarded. We could even build in a special view for teachers, where they can see all their students in a list, very easy, nice formatted list, and they can keep status on how the students are doing. And also inherently there is this type of bragging rights that we've seen where the students they brag that they were the ones that found the typo. Yes?
You could also do that with public libraries.
Yeah,
that would be just another, as libraries are trying to become more relevant, reaching out more to the community as a community entity, because people don't necessarily need them for the books anymore.
Yeah.
That sort of thing just another, it's the same application, or the same idea, just, it's for adults instead.
Very good.
Well, let me just reply to that. We did explore the library route. We found that a lot of them were telling us that are we a registered nonprofit or not, and they can't load it. So we tried to leave bookmarks at libraries and say, hey, you can give these out every time someone rents a book, and that was the challenge, and I think we kind of stopped it there, but.
I'm thinking more in terms of the book groups they run.
Oh, okay.
Rather than,
Sure.
The more community outreach stuff they do, rather than, the library itself promoting you.
Okay.
But,
Yeah,
That's good.
Yes.
I used to be a teacher, and my brain is rotating, and just piggybacking on what you said about the library. They have book reading contests every year. If you could
Right.
somehow enter in there for typo contests for the kids, if you could also contact Scholastic, which goes out to the schools, children buying books, and somehow maybe get typos for kids. So, some sort of thing like that, develop it into a teaching tool. I realize that's a huge project, but I imagine that you have people who are teachers who are on your user list. Get that out to them. Another thing you could do is develop something for school districts to pass out to their teaching staff, to use it as a tool in their classroom. There are all kinds of things you can do, and starting early is a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Not real early, because they're just learning to read then, but by the 4th or 5th grade, I've had my students find all kinds of things.
Great.
That's great.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Yes.
sort of playing on that, something just dawned on me. The library said, we can't deal with you because you're a nonprofit.
Because we're not.
I mean, you're not a
We're not a registered
nonprofit,
nonprofit,
right.
yeah.
But the thing is, the library is reaching out to businesses all the time, asking for sponsorship. Well, if you turn it around, we'll give you sort of our time as opposed to a check.
Right.
And this is what, this amount of time is worth this amount of money, essentially. What's the difference between you and Shakey's Pizza?
Well,
Thank you. That's
You could recognize students who submit us those various levels of typos with T-shirts, backpacks, whatever,
Oh, yeah.
with branding on them.
Absolutely.
That serves a dual purpose, it rewards them,
Yep.
encourages them, and also gets your name out there. What the heck's typo?
Yeah, excellent, thank you. So yeah, I already hit on this here, adding incentives and of course the social learning aspect with the students. So one of the things also that we've done in collecting all and analyzing all the information from the website is looking at what our population looks like. Look at the folks that are on the website.
I
And-
need to do this to you.
Sure. Oh, no.
He wrote this.
We'll blame it on the two guys who aren't here.
Where's the squiggly?
So what we tried to do is dissect who we have. And again, this is kind of our engineer's view, so I hope we don't offend anybody by this, but from what we've seen on our website, we've got 3 types of readers. We've got what we call our type A's. These are the folks that they read often, and they're bothered by mistakes that they find in the books that they read and the material that they read. So it's a big concern. Then what we said is, well, we have our type B readers. And these are the folks that read occasionally, they read often, and they're only somewhat bothered by the typos. So if it's convenient, the computer's there, they'll submit the typo to us. If it's not convenient, oh well, right, we'll let it pass. Then we have what I call our type C readers, and they read occasionally, they don't really mind the errors. When I talk to folks that I categorize in this area, they say, oh, typos.com, that's real nice. I probably won't go to the website. So that's okay, right? Yep.
I